touchdowns to 5 interceptions. That's just ridiculous. And if you look at it, I'll say he had one bad game. Mahomes has had a bad game. But the other 2 losses for Rodgers, he's 291, 3 touchdowns against Minnesota. They lost. 311, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception against Indy, in which they lost. And we all know the debacle that he had against Tampa. Mahomes has more passing yards. They're tied yards per pass attempt. But 14 wins to 12 wins, both the number 1 seed. Skip, I just don't see how Mahomes can catch him. Even if he throws for, 300, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, I just don't, because Rodgers, the numbers are going to be so astronomical. It's hard for someone to throw that many touchdowns, that few interceptions, and not win the MVP, considering that his team, I believe they'll beat Chicago, Skip, and be the number 1 seed. So I believe by Mahomes opening the door, Rodgers walked in that door, because that was a national televised performance. And I tweeted before the game, and I know a lot of people looking at it like it's snowing. I said, this is a prime game for you to throw the ball in. I had one of my best games. It wasn't snowing quite this bad, but it was snowing like this, Skip. I knew where I was going. They slipped sliding all over the place. And before you know it, I got a $174, and I'm sitting on the bench in the 3rd quarter. And that's what happened. Devontae Adams, and they're already in sync, Skip. The last thing you could have to happen is guys slip sliding over the place when the receiver knows where he's going and you're guessing or anticipating where you think he's going to go. So I do believe with that performance last night, I believe that's enough. I believe he's in the forefront, and it's going to be virtually impossible for Mahomes to catch him.
Okay, so you told me last week, if memory serves, that right now you would vote for Devontae Smith to be the Heisman Trophy winner.
I would.
Is that correct?
I would.
Alabama plays receiver for Alabama.
Yes.
So, conversely, would you, or similarly, I should say, should another Devontae get some consideration for MVP?
I think he will get some consideration for Offensive Player of the Year, along with Travis Kelce, along with Derrick Henry.
From night to night, day to day, I go back and forth between who's the best receiver in football. Is it Tyreek or is it Devontae Adams up in Green Bay? 1A, 1A, I go back and forth. After yesterday, I thought Devontae Adams looked like the best receiver in pro football. And there are many days that I think the best receiver in pro football is actually the tight end for Kansas City, because he's just uncoverable, because he's so tall and long and agile, and so shrewd of an operator. He just gets open, and Mahomes trusts him with his soul. He'll throw it within 12 feet of him, and he'll snag it. Okay, so Mahomes has 2 of the top 3 receivers in football, and Aaron Rodgers has maybe the top receiver in football, who, by the way, leads football in receiving yards per game. He missed a couple of games, but he's averaging 102 yards a game. Boy, he's number 1 now in touchdowns with 17. That's pretty great, right? He's starting to threaten a record up in Green Bay held by this guy named Sharp. Are you related to him?
A little bit.
I think he's your big brother.
His last year, he had 18.
Thank you. He had 18, so he's right on the doorstep. And if I know Aaron Rodgers, he will get him 19 in their final game at Soldier
Field. And Skip, it's not been a whole lot of receivers. I mean, you got to go back to Randy. You got to go back to Jerry. My brother had it. I think Mark Clayton, guys that had at least 18 touchdowns in a season. It doesn't happen often.
Nope. It does not. And by the way, your favorite website, Pro Football Focus, currently rates Devontae Adams as the number 1 receiver in pro football.
I'm not going to even fight him on that one.
Okay. Now, let's go to offensive line, shall we? Pro Football Focus says the second best overall offensive line, both pass and run block, is Aaron Rodgers' offensive line. So it's really,
I want to know who's
good.
number 1.
I think Cleveland was.
Cleveland,
going into yesterday. But yesterday they were down 2 starters, so that
and Wills ended up going out.
He did. That's what I'm saying. They were down both those starters. So if he has the second best offensive line, and then all of a sudden last night, A.J. Dillon had a coming out party, albeit in the snow, and they had big advantage, as you said, in the snow. They ended up with 234 yards rushing last night. Does that help Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
I'd say. So 234 rushing, Devontae Adams, offensive line second best. Man, he's got a lot of help.
Yeah, he does, Skip, and the thing is, Vrabel would like to have that back, Skip. You got to challenge that. Hell, I'm throwing the flag just for the sake of it to try to slow him down. Because the guy stepped out of bounds. Aaron Jones stepped out of bounds, Skip.
No, but before I could take a breath and run a play.
That's why he read it. That's why he had a
Okay.
And Aaron Rodgers like, I'm not taking a chance.
Okay. And
But
I've often made the case that the other Aaron, you could say, is the MVP. Last year, he was the MVP of the team for sure. I'm not so sure this year, and I can't argue with, what is it, 44 to
45
to 5, 44 to 5. Cannot
That's unheard
argue.
of, Skip.
That's really good. So I will give him the edge, but I want everybody to remember that at Tampa Bay,
stop doing
he
that.
had a QBR of 12, that scale of 0 to 100, and he threw nearly 2 pick sixes. And over the last 3 quarters of that game, against what became a torchable Tampa Bay defense, he didn't score a point. Was that an MVP performance?
No, Skip. And I said he's had one of those.
Yeah.
And I think every quarterback, but your quarterback has had more of those than Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes.
Okay, but against the Jaguars, who've now secured the Trevor Lawrence pick, right? Against the Jaguars just 3 weeks ago up in Green Bay on the frozen tundra, they barely pulled out the game 24-20, and Aaron Rodgers had a QBR of 45. That's a scale of 0 to 100, so it was below average. Is that MVP quality? And then remember the game at Indy. Aaron was really good in the first half, and they're up 28-14, and he was really not good in the second half when it really counted, and they scored 3 late points to force overtime. That's how bad it was.
Well, they fumbled a punt that get Indy going back in the game, and Valdez-Scantling ended up fumbling the ball in overtime because they got it. But Skip, when you look at his, and I don't think people understand this, in Aaron Rodgers' career, he's had 2 seasons, in which he's thrown double-digit interceptions. Tom Brady in a 21 season have 11 such seasons. I want people at home to let that sink in.
I want them to let this sink in also. Tom Brady is 30-11 in the playoffs and has gone to 9 Super Bowls and should have won 8 of them, but did win 6.
Should have lost 3 more, too.
Yeah, okay.
But see what you did.
That's all you need to know.
But see what you do?
Aaron Rodgers has been to 1 Super Bowl 10 years ago.
And look who he took. Look who he took to the Super Bowl. Mike McCarthy, who happened to leave. He leaves Aaron Rodgers, and he's 6-10. No, he's 6-9. Yeah, 6-9. Aaron Rodgers is about to be the number 2 seed last year with 13 games, and about to be the number 1 seed this year without Mike McCarthy. Now, who made who?
Since that Super Bowl run, a wild card road run all the way to the Super Bowl 10 years ago, would you believe that Aaron Rodgers is 6-7 in postseason games? That's not very good. And would you believe he had a QBR of only 23 in the NFC Championship game at San Francisco last year, in which he threw a couple of picks and lost a fumble with 3 turnovers?
Tell the people at home, when Brady's teams in the playoffs gives up 37 points, what happens? When they give up 30-plus, which has only happened 3 times. Only 3 or 4 times.
Brady scored 33 in a Super Bowl and lost because Belichick gave up 41 to Nick Foles.
Yeah.
Nick Foles?
You do realize that Aaron Rodgers, what did San Francisco score on them in the championship game?
Well,
Matt Ryan hung up 40 on them in a championship game.
did Aaron get the ball? Did he get it? I think he got it a lot.
Hold on.
He did nothing.
You just told me against my homeboy that Tom Brady didn't get the ball in the first half. That's what you told me.
I'm not so sure about MVP, but I definitely think Aaron Rodgers is the comeback player of the year.
Man, get out of here.
Well, let's come back because he came from nowhere to everywhere.
Let's skip this one out on the. So no, I think that should be Tom Brady because hold on, they had the exact same touchdowns last year. One threw 24, the other threw 24. One had 6 picks, the other had 8 picks. One threw for slightly above 4,000. The other threw for about 4,200. So I'm just trying to figure out this notion that Tom Brady was just like lights out last year, and Aaron Rodgers was barely skating by.
Did Tom Brady have Devontae Adams up in New England? I think not.
You remember he missed Devontae for 4 games. He missed it for 2 games this year. So how many touchdowns would he have? He might be 50-5 at this moment.
Well, then you're making a case Devontae should be the MVP this year.
Look, the year Jerry went 22 touchdowns, he didn't get it. The year Randy Moss went 23 touchdowns, Skip, how you going to give it to the guy? Actually, John Elway, if I'm not mistaken, John got the MVP that year in '87. The year Randy broke it, Tom had 50 touchdowns. Tom got it. If they gonna give it to the guy that's throwing you the touchdowns.
And I will finish my case off by saying just a week ago at Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers in the second half against Carolina and Teddy Bridgewater threw for a grand total of 44 yards in the second half. And he said after the game, I stunk.
He stunk. But Skip,
I just gave you 4 games that were not MVP caliber.
Yeah, Skip, but he's played 15. So what about those other games? I mean, no quarterback, no player has been exemplary in every single game. But if you look, it's going to be the totality and the body of work in which they've done. I believe it's a two-man race. I believe it's between Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. And I believe after the performance yesterday that Mahomes opened the door and Aaron Rodgers, not only he didn't walk through the door, he kicked the damn door in. You saw that last night, Skip. He was spectacular now. Give the man his credit, Skip. Now, you want to give Tom Brady credit for that.
In the snow, he was spectacular. Huge advantages. You detailed for him. In the snow, you don't understand. Well, Tennessee did not understand.
No, it gets cold in Tennessee. It snows in Nashville.
Not as used to it. I mean, it's what we come to love about watching Green Bay. So Skip had a very specific wish from Santa this season. Are we a week away from Skip getting his Christmas wish of an improbable Cowboys NFC East win? It's still a possibility. Michael Vick will join us. Let's get his thoughts next.
No mercy.